The Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee will come to order. The clerk will call the roll.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Before we start, I'd just like to make a couple of things clear. We only deal with the fiscal impact of bills. We do not deal with the substance. So if a bill has been heard in another committee already, it will have had testimony and comments from people. We are not doing that. If a bill has come directly to this committee and someone wants to speak to it, that will be fine. In addition, we're going to have two blocks. One block, the first block, will be bills that have no fiscal impact or very little fiscal impact that we think we probably can absorb. The next block will be bills that are similar to Senate bills or identical. Most of them are similar, and that will be the second block. And then we will get into bills that don't fit either of those categories. So to begin, April.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This first block would be, you would be making the motion to report in a block with a member taking any out that if they wish for them to come out. The first of those is House Bill 852, Delegate Ayala's bill, and this is related to required information security training programs for state employees under VITA. That came here from General Laws, 13 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention. It has a slight fiscal impact on the non-general fund side that would be recovered from fees of $75,000, and it was included in the House budget. The next bill, House Bill 6, Delegate Bourne's bill, has to do with unlawful discriminatory housing practices under the Virginia Fair Housing Law. It has a fiscal impact of $370,856. Actually, I apologize, Madam Chair. That was not supposed to be in the block. So it's for the first was House Bill 852. The next one would be House Bill 557. Delegate Brewer's bill, which was related to cardinal knowledge of pretrial or post-trial offenders and bail bondsmen, and it's increasing the penalty. That was reported unanimously from the Judiciary Committee. It has a Woodrum impact of $50,000, which is included in the House budget. The next bill, House Bill 1099, Delegate Carr's bill, has to do with the exemption of high-risk contracts from required review for rail construction or design. That was reported 12 yes, 0 no from General Laws. It has no fiscal impact, and it increases from $2 million to $5 million the annual cap for on-call architectural and engineering services under the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. The next bill, House Bill 1524, Delegate Delaney's bill, has to do with touching the intimate parts of another and the penalty for prostitution. There's a Woodrum impact of $50,000, which was included in the House budget. It reported from the Judiciary 11 yes, 2 no. And it changes that definition to include the touching of the unclothed intimate parts of another person with the intent to sexually arouse or gratify. The next bill is House Bill 907, Delegate Hayes's bill. This has to do with sickle cell anemia and adult and pediatric comprehensive sickle cell clinical networks under the Department of Health. It was reported from Education and Health here, 15 yes, 0 no. It has a fiscal impact of $305,000 general fund per year. It was included but in both the House and Senate budgets, though. Next bill, House Bill 1284, Delegate Hope's bill, has to do with the use of isolated confinement in correctional facilities. It has no general fund impact other than a one-time cost of $55,000, which can be absorbed by the agency, and some possible future costs for adhering to the standards. It has the Department of Corrections in consultation with stakeholder work groups described in the bill to review the standards governing the use of isolated confinement in local correctional facilities, with a report by December 1 of 2020. The next bill, House Bill 1690, Delegate Keem's bill, has to do with the increase in certain maximum allowable prizes under charitable gaming. It was reported from General Laws, 12 yes, 0 no, and it includes a reenactment clause by General Laws. It has no cost impact, but it changes the single-door bingo prizes, for instance, from $50 to $250, and cumulative bingo prizes from 250 to 500, and some other changes as well. And again, it has a reenactment clause. The next bill, House Bill 420, Delegate Price's bill, has to do with the Department of Emergency Management responsibilities of political subdivisions. It has no fiscal impact and was reported here from General Laws, 15 yes, 0 no's. It requires the department to review its emergency services and disaster preparedness programs to determine if changes are required to address the needs of individuals with limited English proficiency and those with access or functional needs. The next bill, House Bill 623, Delegate Simon's bill, has to do with prohibitions on same-sex marriage and civil unions being removed from the code and use of gender-neutral terms. That was reported from the judiciary, 8 yes, 5 no. It has a Woodrum impact of $50,000, which was included in the House budget. The next bill, House Bill 394, Delegate Ward's bill, has to do with the creation of the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It was reported here from General Laws, 12 yes, 0 no. It has a fiscal impact of $599,192 general fund per year. It was funded in both the House and the Senate budgets. Next bill, House Bill 253, Delegate Watts' bill, has to do with offenses requiring registration under the Sex Offender and Crimes Against Minors Registry Act. It adds a third or subsequent conviction or lawful dissemination or sale of images to another to the list of offenses requiring registration. It has a $50,000 Woodrum impact, which was included in the House budget, plus a one-time $6,000 IT upgrade at the Virginia State Police. And Madam Chair, that completes that block.
Would any member like to remove a bill from the block?
Madam Chairman, I would ask
Yes.
that House Bill 623 be removed from the block.
I would move the remaining bills in the block be reported.
Okay. The motion is all the bills in the block, with the exception of 623, be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
Fourteen ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. The bills in the block are reported. Now to go back to House Bill 623.
And I would move that bill be reported.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 623 be reported. Any comments? All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
11 ayes, 3 nays.
11 ayes, 3 nays. The bill is reported.
Usual.
Our next block is bills that are similar to Senate bills.
Madam Chair, these will have to be taken one at a time because a number of them need to either have substitutes or be conformed. The first one is House Bill 827, Delegate Carol Foy's bill related to the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act and unlawful discrimination. I believe it has an amendment, and I would ask Connor to report on that.
Madam Chair, Senator McClellan had requested an amendment to HB 827 that would, at the beginning of line 117, strike lines 117 to 119, and that's language that's currently in the bill that allows a defendant, in other words, the employer, to recover attorney's fees and costs if someone brings a frivolous or vexatious action against them. So the amendment would be to strike those lines.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator McClellan.
Speaking to the amendment, this amendment will conform the House version to the Senate version that has already passed the Senate, and it's going to be heard, I think, tomorrow.
Okay. The amendment has been moved and I assume seconded. Senator McClellan. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay. It's been moved that House Bill 827 as amended be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is reported.
Madam Chair, the next bill, House Bill 806, Delegate Delaney's bill, has to do with victims of sexual assault, the Criminal Injuries Compensation Fund. It's similar to Senate Bill 949, Senator Lucas's bill, which passed the Senate 37 yes, 2 no with the Appropriations Clause. The fiscal impact can't completely be determined, but there is funding in both the House and Senate budgets to reimburse healthcare providers for the expenses of sexual assault victims. The recommendation would be to conform to Senate Bill 949.
It's moved and seconded that it be conformed to the Senate bill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 806 be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
12 ayes, 1 nay, 1 abstention.
12 ayes, 1 nay, 1 abstention. The bills are reported.
Madam Chair, the next bill, House Bill 1015, Delegate Herring's bill, has to do with the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Prevention Fund and reporting. It came from Rehab and Social Services here, 15 yes, 0 no, after they conformed it to be identical to Senate Bill 297, Senator Favola's bill, which passed the Senate 40 yes, 0 no. The recommendation would be to report it since it has been conformed already.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 1015 be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. The bill's reported.
Madam Chair, the next bill, House Bill 1017, Delegate Sickles' bill, has to do with the creation of the Commonwealth of Virginia Innovation Partnership. The Chair's bill, Senate Bill 576, was very similar. There's a difference between the versions of the makeup of the board, and the recommendation is to conform to Senate Bill 576.
It's been moved and seconded the bill be conformed to the Senate bill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's been moved and seconded the bill be reported as amended. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is reported.
Madam Chair, the next bill, House Bill 393, Delegate Ward's bill, has to do with landlord and tenant statements of rights and responsibilities. It's similar to Senate Bill 707, Senator McClellan's bill, which passed the Senate with the clause 27 yes, 10 no. The fiscal impact is $85,000 general fund per year, and it was included in the Senate budget, but the House budget did not fund. The recommendation would be to conform it to Senate Bill 707.
It's been moved and seconded that it be conformed to the Senate bill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Moved and seconded that House Bill 393 as amended be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
13 ayes, 1 nay.
13 ayes, 1 nay. The bill's reported.
Madam Chair, the next bill, House Bill 1681, Delegate Willett's bill, has to do with electronic versions of instant bingo, pull tabs, or seal cards under the Virginia Charitable Gaming Board. It's substantially similar to Senate Bill 1052, Senator Reeves' bill, which was continued in the committee to 2021 on a vote of 16 yes, 0 no.
If I may make a comment, I now know more about the impact of this bill than I did when we had Senator Reeves' bill, and I wish I could undo what I suggested we do to his bill, but that's not possible. But I do think that the charitable organizations do need this assistance, so I would recommend that it be reported. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 1681 be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. Bill's reported.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Hanger.
thank you. Sorry to slow things down here, but before we go to the next block, I had a question. We reported House Bill 827, but before we did, we entertained an amendment which struck to the policy rather than the cost, and I guess I need legal advice right now. Basically what we did was remove the section where defendant could be awarded reasonable attorney fees, and as I read it, and I didn't have my pad up at that time, if it was frivolous, vexatious, and brought in bad faith. My question is to our attorneys is whether the judge would have the ability to do that anyway without that language.
Madam
Senator
Chair.
McClellan, oh, sorry.
I think Senator Peterson wants to speak to that, but I would just say that the reason we did that is that is not on the Senate bill. It's not going to be added to the Senate bill. We've already passed the Senate bill, so this is to conform the two bills, number one. Number two, there are no other provisions of discrimination law in Virginia that would include that attorney's fee provision, and Senator Peterson can explain why.
Sure.
But not only is it to conform it to Senate Bill 712, but to conform to every other anti-discrimination cause of action in current code or in any other bill pending before the General Assembly.
If I might, Senator Hanger, if it's a Virginia state cause of action, Section 8.01-271.1 of the Code of Virginia allows you to reclaim attorney's fees as sanctions against any attorney that files a claim without a basis in law or fact. And so that's existing law, so it would be gratuitous to add it there.
That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sometimes we non-lawyers are a disadvantage around here. Okay, April. Let's see, where are we?
Madam Chair, that completed the bills in those
Okay.
two blocks.
On our sign-up list, Delegate Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
We have done 907, so you have 904.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. Before you, I believe, is House Bill 904. In the way that the code reads now, that currently adults who are employed or volunteering with the public sports organization are not mandatory reporters of suspected child abuse or sexual abuse.
We're having trouble hearing you. Can you?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Under the current code, it's pretty definitive and explicit as far as who's required to report in the case of child abuse and the knowledge of in the case of coaches and athletic directors. Problem is the code is silent when it comes to public school athletic directors and coaches, but it does spell out that for private schools, those individuals are required to report of knowledge of any type of sexual abuse that's going on. This was brought to me by one of my constituents to simply say they believe that we need to specify in the code that under public school situations, those athletic coaches and directors should be required as well. We're knowledgeable of recent situations a little north of us on the college level where there was suspected knowledge of such, and there was nothing done in that particular case. And so we just want to add to the requirement of private school coaches being required to public schools as well.
Yes, Senator Marsden.
Thank you. Delegate Hayes, the summary that I'm looking at here also covers volunteers. Now, certainly, public school coaches, athletic directors, what have you, can be trained, as reporters. Volunteers sometimes come and go to a particular team. Maybe a dad who played football is going to help out a little bit, or they have somebody volunteering to do some training issues or whatever. How would that work, and how would these people be held accountable?
Any of the cases of a coach or an athletic director, whether employed or volunteering, would be required to report of an incident if they are knowledgeable of something going on.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Peterson.
I actually remember when we put this in the code, it was 6 or 7 years ago after all the Penn State controversies. I think the thought is that the public coaches would have been wrapped up in school employees and everything else, and so we sort of had a class for private organizations or private sports teams. Having said that, I don't think it does any harm to the law to put it in there, but I think that's why it was not added there originally.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Senator Deasy.
Senator Peterson, what's your thought about the volunteer aspect that Senator Marsden raised?
Well, the word volunteer, it's already in there, and right now it's a volunteer. Like I coached I coach a youth league football, and, you know, I'm volunteering, I'm certainly not getting paid. If I had evidence that one of my children or one of the boys on my team was abused in some way, should I be a mandatory reporter? Well, I know the law well enough. I mean, would other coaches know that? I mean, that's a judgment call, but that's the law already. I think his bill is whether or not we put the same standard on if I'm volunteering with my son's high school team.
Correct.
Exactly.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I
Senator
would just say,
Vogel.
speaking to that, I would say, in this case, as a public policy matter, I don't see making a distinction between whether a person is compensated or they're not compensated. In this case, I think we want them to be mandatory reporters in either case. So I would move that we report the bill.
It's been moved and seconded, but before we vote, Senator Norman.
Madam Chairperson, I think it is a bad idea to put the volunteers in on this situation. The fluidity with which they do, and the definition of who is a volunteer and what capacity is an ambiguous and fluid term, and I just think it's inappropriate.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that the bill be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
13 ayes, 2 nays.
13 ayes, 2 nays. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Madam Chair,
Thank
members
you.
of the committee.
Delegate Fowler.
Thank you,
Yes,
Madam Chairman.
Delegate.
House Bill 1557, all right, Madam Chairman, the members of the committee, in Virginia, as we are aware, we have two different types of local school boards, ones that are elected and ones that are appointed. My locality, of course, let me back up, and of course, they're basically also, I'm painfully aware, there are two different methods in which these separate school boards are compensated. My locality, Hanover County, which has an appointed school board, came to me seeking some type of improvement over the current process. And after taking a look at some of the options, we concluded that probably the easiest and most seamless way to accomplish what they want to do is just to include everybody, the elected school boards as well as the appointed school boards, to go through the same process for their compensation. So that's essentially what House Bill 1557 does. It eliminates the annual salary limit for the appointed school boards and permits any appointed school board to pay each of its members an annual salary that, again, is consistent with the salary procedures and no more than the salary limits provided already for local governments in Code Sections 15.2. Which again is the identical process for the elected school boards. Now, again, I'm not aware of any elected school boards that have, runaway, extravagant salaries. So I'm confident that the appointed school boards would act in a similar way. Again, at the end, the House added an enactment clause that makes clear that nothing in this act shall be construed to reduce the maximum salaries for school board members currently in effect. And Madam Chairman, members, that's essentially what House Bill 1557 seeks to accomplish.
Are there any questions or comments to the delegate?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Edwards.
In the case of appointed school boards especially, doesn't the locality decide what they get paid? Local governing authority?
Madam Chairman, Senator Edwards, that's correct. In the current process, that they present their budget, which I would presume would include compensation, and that would be approved by the local school board. But again, I think since, correct me if I'm wrong, but since elected school boards don't have taxing authority, I would suspect that their process is probably similar. So
my question, Madam Chair, is
Senator Edwards.
the governing body, if they disagree with the salary of the school boards, how do they express that? In the budget, not approving the budget, or what? How would that work?
Senator Edwards, since I've never been a part of any one of them happening in Hanover County, I think the last time Hanover County pursued a school board raise, and I have somebody here from Hanover, I believe it was maybe 13 years ago, is that correct? So, but again, I do know that the process is that, they work with the local school board to determine what they believe is a justifiable rate of compensation, and that
So,
seemed to
yeah,
work
Madam
well.
Chair, yeah, I guess the answer
Senator
would be, I'm guessing that the local governing body just not approve their budget, period, but not tell them what they should get paid.
Madam Chairman, I think just like we work through a budget here at the General Assembly, I'm sure there are lots of things that the local school board would agree with respect to the budget, and then would again amend other things and till both sides came to some type of an agreement.
Madam Chair,
Senator Peterson.
I think the point of this bill is to take the caps on, or the salary levels on school boards for appointed school boards and take it out of the code and just vest it in the discretion of the Board of Supervisors for that county. That's the whole point.
That's what I see. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Senator Peterson.
Are there further comments,
We don't
questions?
set the salaries for elected.
Is there a motion? No, it was heard. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. It's been moved to
Second.
report and seconded. All in favor, record your votes aye, opposed nay.
6 ayes, 8 nays.
6 ayes, 8 nays, the bill is not reported.
Thank you, Madam
you.
Chairman, members of the board.
Delegate Aird.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We'll start with House Bill 687.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In keeping with your request and speaking specifically to the fiscal impact, it is my understanding that this bill does not have a fiscal impact. The way we have drafted this language, we are merely trying to ensure that the certification process is managed through the board. And I understand that they are able to absorb these costs from within the work that they are already doing.
Delegate Aird, our report is that it does indeed have a fiscal impact.
I'm curious about what
That-
your report has.
205,000 general fund for 21 and 66 general fund for 22. Also, the House budget does not include funding,
So
but you don't believe
I
there
don't
is
have
one.
that information, and what I do have is that there is one wage position to oversee the registry, and that there is perhaps a one-time cost for the infrastructure. But again, the Department of Health has indicated that they can absorb any costs that are associated with doing this work.
Let's see if our staff, Mike, do you have a comment?
So, Madam Chair, so I think what the fiscal impact statement had indicated was that they would have to, the fiscal impact comes from creating the registry to include this. And it would actually come from them having to actually, just the cost to develop the registry and a wage position to maintain it over time. So that's where the fiscal impact comes from. If you didn't have the registry part of the bill, then it would have a fiscal impact to the health department.
And I missed entirely what he said, but are you looking at the substitute version of the FIS that I'm referencing? That was revised after the introduced bill, after we amended the bill?
Mike?
Madam Chair, I mean, I don't, I looked at the last version that existed.
This, that states right here.
Madam Chair, I mean, it does indicate in the FIS that they said they could absorb it, but that would be unusual to absorb that level of funding for a new function of an agency.
Are there further questions? Yes, Senator Norman.
Madam Chair, what's in front of us is roughly a little bit over a $200,000 cost. Is the agency prepared to absorb that?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
I wanted to hear, Madam Chairman, I wanted to hear from the agency whether they're prepared to absorb about $205,000.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Heather Board with the Virginia Department of Health. And yes, we are prepared to absorb any costs.
Well, Madam Chair, I would say they're overfunded then.
And Madam Chair, if I might further explain the reason why this cost, and I don't want to speak to the agency, but and I know you didn't want to relitigate the bill, but let me just explain. If you look at the language in the bill, it's speaking specifically to the board identifying another entity that would host this registry. The language speaks to a board identifying merely qualifications that are already being taken care of by other registration entities and just approving them so that they are not, I'll wait. Madam Chair.
Okay, yes, Senator McClellan.
Based on what Delegate Ayer just said, so it sounds like the fiscal impact that's in our notes for the software, hardware, and infrastructure costs of the certification system, it sounds like what, if I heard Delegate Ayer correctly, they will no longer be setting up the system in-house. They will be using an external system to do the registry, and so they wouldn't be incurring the cost of the software, the hardware, and the infrastructure.
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
I was just checking what happened in the Senate because I remembered we'd had this discussion. And what we did in the Senate was put in the budget itself a request for a work group to work on this topic of how to deal with dualists.
So if I can
that's where
clarify, if you're referencing some of the similar language that we have in the House budget, there are multiple steps to trying to have community doulas reimbursed, which there is language in the budget that speaks to a work group that will be assessing the rates, which services, and the additional process that entails. That is separate to this. The certification process is the first step in moving in that direction. So the work group and this are very much separate.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Locke.
I want to commend the agency for taking this on because a significant number of doulas work with African-American women who are the women who are dying from maternal mortality.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator McClellan.
And again, not to relitigate the policy, but the purpose of this bill, as it's been amended, is to make sure that anyone in the community who calls themselves a doula has the certification so that anyone who wants to use a doula, which tends to be lower income and women of color, know they are getting a doula that has been trained. So I think since the agency is not going to be the one to incur the cost to set up the registry to do that, even though we have a separate work group to deal with other issues around doulas, it might be worth passing this forward so that we can at least make sure doulas who call themselves doulas have this stamp of they're trained as doulas.
And if I might add to that, Madam Chair.
Yes.
And I really tried to adhere to your request to deal specifically with the fiscal impact, but specifically if you look at the language, right now you have doulas operating in the Commonwealth of Virginia that are not deemed state certified. And so really what this language is doing is trying to make sure there is some consistency in which the Commonwealth of Virginia identifies the qualifications that we believe are necessary for you to consider yourself to be a Virginia community-based certified doula.
Okay, thank you. Senator Norman.
Madam Chair, I don't mean to be a contrarian, and I compliment the delegate on what they're doing, but we're going to be confronted with a problem because this discussion has migrated from being a discussion about the money and financing to the substantive provisions of the bill. And there are other folks that are out there on some very controversial issues and probably are going to want to be heard on the substance of their bills. And I just, and I don't say this disrespect for you, but there is something to be said for consistency on how we're approaching this.
Well, Madam Chair,
But
I'm
I
ready
would
to make
point out
this.
that we are not hearing from the public on this.
And Madam Chair, if I might, if we're speaking specifically to the finances of the bill, I would just like to reiterate that we just heard from the agency that they mirror what the language in the fiscal impact statement states, which is that they can absorb the costs.
Okay, is there a motion? Sorry, Senator Hanger was.
Well, I was just going to say that I'd be willing to entertain support of this with the understanding that we may, whoever's in conference would put some language in the budget that, to that effect, that the monies to cover this would be pulled from their administrative overhead or wherever they would propose to take it. With that understanding, I would move that it be reported.
It's been moved and seconded the bill be reported. All in favor signify by voting aye. Opposed?
15 ayes, 0 nays.
15 ayes, 0 nays. Bill's reported.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 1467.
Okay.
Thank you again. Attempting to speak simply to the fiscal implications of this legislation, Madam Chair and members of the committee, I do have a substitute that I would ask be reported for this.
Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded the substitute be adopted. All in favor say aye. 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 Opposed?
Madam Chair, the substitute merely clarifies some of the language that's within the bill, but specifically, this bill is doing two things. Number one, as it pertains to cost to the state, these services that we're asking for are already standard operating procedure by the Department of Corrections, which we are simply codifying to ensure the practice remains in place going forward, and that practice is providing assistance and offering access to vital documents such as identification, your birth certificate, and your Social Security card, and this would have no fiscal impacts on the Department of Corrections. And as it pertains to localities, we have narrowly drawn the language in the bill so that the burden of the legislation comes from the requirement to provide these services for a truly small group of offenders, which in this case would be if you did not stay less than 90 days, you did not already have identification, you did not opt out of the services, you did not have the capacity to pay, and you did not end up in an institution that already does this, because several of our correctional facilities and local facilities are already doing this as well.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator
I would
Dees.
just ask, the notes suggest in the bills, this looks an awful lot like 1093, and I'd like to know what the differences are between these two bills, which is broader, which is more narrow. What are the differences?
Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, so Delegate Hope's bill, HB 1093, would have DMV issue an identification card to a prisoner on their release. Delegate Aird's bill has more to do with jails and prisons facilitating people for applying for other kinds of identification that already exist, like a Social Security card or a birth certificate or things like that.
Senator Norman.
I would ask the delegate, as I read through this, have either the Sheriff's Department or the administrators of the regional jails expressed a position on this?
Mr. Senator Norman, it's my understanding that the Sheriff's Association has indicated they have some concern with the language regarding indigent, and in the language, you will see that you are responsible for your expenses regarding these documents unless you are deemed to be indigent.
Thank you.
And this is why I spoke to having drafted the language very narrowly so that it applies specifically to you have to not already have these, you have to have been in the facility less than 90 days. You have to also, all those things I mentioned.
We have another similar bill, Delegate Hope's bill, 1093, and I wonder if someone could walk me through the similarities and differences.
Madam Chair, so Delegate Hope's bill is, the DMV would issue an identification card to a prisoner when they're released, and Delegate Aird's bill is prisons and jails helping prisoners apply for existing forms of identification like birth certificate, social security card.
Thank you. Are there questions for the delegate?
Madam Chair?
More questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Marsden.
Thank you. I'd spoken with Delegate Hope earlier about his bill, and one of the problems in doing this is that you will go out to a facility, a prison, and there won't be enough guys to kind of really make the trip worthwhile. So I've asked DMV and the Department of Corrections to kind of work together to make sure that they have some ways of consolidating some prisoners so that these efforts can be made that will be a little bit more efficient as we do this, because there's no sense driving all that way to do 10 when there's a prison 10, 15 miles away you could transport some people and whatever. So we're in discussions on that to make this a little bit better, but it's important to get these guys this.
Yes, and Madam Chair, if I might, in my conversation with DMV, they are committed to having that conversation and ensuring that efficiency is key.
Senator Norman.
Madam Chairman, two observations as I was reading the bill over, and I just wanted to confirm it. The first is on talking about folks that have been in there for 90 days or so. I'm very familiar with the determination on indigency, but someone can go in and when they are convicted, not be indigent, but based on the period of time of incarceration, can find themselves in a position of indigency. So somebody's going to have to go through the statutory provisions of determining whether or not at the time of release they're indigent as opposed to the time that they were convicted. And that causes me to pause. The second thing that causes me to pause, and that's why I asked the question, and I know we're not hearing from the general public, is there is a mandatory provision with the word shall in there. And as I've told my law students, words mean something. And it provides that the jail administrators or the sheriffs shall forward such identification or documentation to the prisoner. That's after they've released. So they're going to have to track these people down. And I live in this world, so there's no sense having a dialogue about it.
And Senator Norman, I would say I believe your jail is represented by the Virginia Peninsula Regional Jail, and they are already doing this work. They are one of the institutions where...
I'm very familiar with it. I'm in that jail 5 times a week.
Certainly.
Through the chair, please.
On work release.
Okay, are there further comments on the delegate's bill? Is there a motion? Been moved and seconded that House Bill 1467 be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
I thank the committee.
13 ayes, 2 nays.
13 ayes, 2 nays, bills reported. Next on the list is Delegate Coiner.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
I have before you House Bill 928. It does provide for a pilot recovery high school program for students suffering from substance abuse addiction. The bill that came out of the House did decouple the funding clause from the bill itself. This is a regional school that would assist 15 school divisions, starting in Goochland and Powhatan, coming down through the Richmond region, through the Tri-Cities, picking up Petersburg and Colonial Heights and Dinwiddie, and all the way down to Surrey and Sussex. The House budget did include a portion of funding, as with all pilots. We do believe that we'll be able to come back to the General Assembly and show how this can be used throughout the Commonwealth successfully. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there questions? This is something that I very much support, and I hope will go forward as a pilot. But I think we need to put the clause on it.
I understand.
So move.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that the clause be added. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there, it's been moved and seconded, the bill be reported as amended. All in favor, vote aye. Opposed, nay. Yay.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Madam
Bill's
Chair.
reported. Let's see, Delegate Kilgore.
I have 1332, and I think I've worked with staff to get a substitute for that, Madam Chairwoman.
It's been moved and seconded the substitute be adopted. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
And Madam Chairwoman, what we tried to address in this substitute is basically to take out the fiscal impact. We were not aware of the fiscal impact when I did not have that when it came through the House, not know anything about it. So basically what we're doing now.
That happened a fair amount.
Yeah, it came out to be, yes. So what we're wanting to do is just set up a statewide telehealth plan and to basically move forward with this, with the telemedicine. Telemedicine is going to be the future of how we keep folks out of the hospital and things of that nature. And it's very important not only for rural areas but for urban areas. And I do have a quick testimony here from UVA that I've been working with on this. Just real quick, if I could, Madam Chairwoman.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair, and the members of the committee. I'm Brooke Vergalis. I'm a neonatologist at the University of Virginia, and I'd like to speak to the fiscal impact of House Bill 1332.
I think I took that out, but go ahead.
Don't take
It's
that.
gone.
Okay, okay.
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 But it is, Delegate, it is gone. The fiscal
Yeah.
impact is gone.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. I'm the medical director of the neonatology remote patient monitoring program. It's just one of the parts of the remote patient monitoring program we have at UVA. At any one time, we're monitoring 15 to 20 infants and children, or a total of 75 patients per year. We spend $25,000 per year at UVA to remotely monitor these patients, and our cost is thus just over $300 per patient.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
blundered. I wasn't going to take testimony, and I
Oh,
I
that's
did.
all right. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, so it has no fiscal impact. Is there a It's been moved and seconded, it be reported. All in favor, say aye. Vote aye, the proposed nay.
And Madam Chairwoman, thanks to you and your staff for working with us. Thank you.
15 ayes, 0 nays.
15 ayes, 0 nay, the bills are reported. Delegate Tran.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. You ready? I have House
Yep.
Bill 1208. This bill came about, my constituent didn't ask me to do it, but it was an issue that came about from a constituent that Senator Barker and I shared, where the family lives outside of the bounds for school bus transportation provided by Fairfax County, which is set at, you have to live a mile or more from school. And she has two children, one who's really, really sick and requires a lot of medical attention in the mornings. And it makes her very difficult for her to bring her younger child to school on time. A kindergartner who can't walk on his own and as he's grown up. So what that made me realize was that there are some school districts that may not offer a process for families in this situation to apply for an exemption for the bus pass. And so this is what that bill simply does. And we did some research, and there is, an increasing prevalence of families in Virginia who care for people with disabilities of any different types. So just for example, 2.3% of all Virginians have a self-care disability, and that is, so I just wanted to share that with you. And so this would be supporting those families and making sure that those kids are able to get to school on time if there's space available on the bus route that they are nearest to.
Okay, are there questions for the delegate?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Evan.
from reading the bill, it looks like they don't have to establish a new bus stop, they just have to
That's-
get to an existing bus stop?
That's correct.
So the bus doesn't do anything different?
I'm sorry?
So the bus doesn't have to do anything different?
Madam Chair, the answer is yes. He's
you.
correct.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Peterson.
I guess my problem with this bill is, and I know this is not necessarily, well, maybe it is fiscal impact, is that we're putting in 22.1 how buses are going to operate. And we have school boards, and at some point, they got to be able to do things too. And this is a fiscal issue. Every time we pass a law in 22.1, we got to print paper. It's got to go into the code books. And so if we could make it a Section 1 bill, then I'd be fine with it. But it's just continually putting things in the code At some point, the code's not gonna be big enough to handle it all. That's a comment, not a
I
question.
know, it's a comment.
I realize that. Maybe
Okay.
I'm the only one that feels that way.
Is there any
I'll make
further
that a
comment?
motion. All right.
Inquire, Madam Clerk,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator
Doesn't the
Dolan.
Section 1 bill have the force of law?
Right, I'm sorry.
Madam
Okay, we
Chair,
have a,
What was the motion on the floor?
it was that it become a Section 1 bill. Yes, Lisa.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to point out for the committee that the Code Commission over the past several years has developed a policy that they codify in the code things that they deem to be a general application, regardless of whether the General Assembly has requested that or not. So in reading this, my guess would be the Code Commission would go ahead and codify this.
So you still are sticking,
Madam Chair, I fight with them every year about bills that I know members have
Madam
not
Chair.
wanted codified.
Senator Peterson.
Madam Chair, I do this for 60 days of the year, and this is something that's important to me, that we pass too many things in the code, and they should be Section 1 bills. Now, whether the Code Commission treats it differently, I don't sit on the Code Commission, but this is my only chance to voice this lone protest.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Is there a second to make it a Section 1 bill? There, I don't hear a second. Oh, you did? Okay, okay, all right. So all in favor of this amendment, which will be stripped out by the Code Commission, please vote aye. Say aye, aye. Any opposed? No.
No.
I think it was a no. If anybody wants to challenge me. All right, the amendment fails.
Madam Chair, I have another motion.
Yes, Senator.
Move to report.
It's been moved and seconded. The bill be reported. All in favor, record your vote. Aye, opposed, nay.
11 ayes, 3 nays, 1 abstention.
11 ayes, 3 nays, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Okay. Delegate Bourne.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 6 adds to our fair housing law as a protected class. It prohibits discrimination based on a person's source of incomes when they're applying for rental housing. My understanding is that the fiscal impact that originally was put on, I think it was relatively late in the process, is no longer applicable to the bill. And I believe there's somebody here from the Attorney General's office that can say that there's no fiscal impact.
Is there someone who could say that?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator McClellan.
To the extent there is, the budget did include funding for Senate Bill 97, which amended the same code section. That bill and its House companion have both been carried over due to some unintended consequences of that bill we didn't have time to work out. So to the extent an FTE would be required for this, which I don't think it is, there is already funding in the budget that could cover that position.
Okay, thank you. I must say, I've witnessed this in my own community of Reston, and I think you're going in exactly the right direction.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. But we're not talking about the substance, we're just talking
Correct.
about the money.
And again, to the extent members would want to hear directly from the Attorney General's office, the representative, I think, is in the restroom, so.
And
That's my understanding.
I just saw her in the
Is there-
hallway. I'll go
Okay.
get her.
Is there a motion on the bill? It's been moved and seconded, the bill be reported. All in favor, record your vote. Aye, opposed, nay.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 2 abstentions.
Thank you,
13
Madam Chair.
ayes, 0 nays, 2 abstentions.
I appreciate the
It's
committee's time.
reported. Delegate Hurst.
Thank you and good morning, Madam Chair, members of the
Good
committee.
morning.
I have House Bill 1301 for you, and DLS has been doing a great job helping us throughout the process for this bill, and I believe, Connor, that you may have an amendment prepared.
Madam Chair, Delegate Hurst, so the amendment on line 140 would be to, after, at the beginning of line 40, to strike all of that line and through agency on line 141 and replace it with receiving child protective services in foster care or placed for adoption, which I think clarifies the scope of what the bill applies to.
Is there a motion on the amendment?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that the amendment be agreed to. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Amendment's agreed to. Now, you all funded it, but we didn't have anything like it.
Right.
So we're going to need to put the clause on it.
Sure. Yeah.
It moved and seconded the clause be added. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Is there a motion on the bill? It's been moved and seconded the bill be reported as amended. All in favor, vote aye. Opposed, nay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
15 ayes, 0 nays.
15 ayes, 0 nays. Bill is reported. Delegate Hope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Members of the committee. I do have 3 bills.
We've already done 1284 in the block.
Okay, great. Then I have 2 bills. 1093, I understand you did take up a similar version of this, which is a more broader version, a delegate aired. It has
It's
to
on
do
the
with
last
prisoner
page.
ID cards.
Yes, we did. Are they incompatible or are they?
I don't believe so.
Yes.
Madam Chair, so this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Delegate Hope's bill has to do with DMV issuing a identification card upon a prisoner's release. And the earlier bill had to do with helping prisoners apply for birth certificates and social security cards. So they're not in conflict.
Okay. Are there questions for the delegate? Is there a motion on the bill? It's been moved. Is there a second? And seconded that the bill be reported. All in favor, vote aye. Opposed, nay.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. Bill's reported. You have also 1090, I
House Bill
believe.
1090, yes, Madam Chair. House Bill 1090 would end the annual political debate by eliminating the codified list of vaccine requirements for attendance at public and private schools. Instead of listing the specific vaccines, the bill requires that children be vaccinated in accordance with the routinely recommended vaccines listed in the immunization schedule published by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. On the technical advice of the Virginia Department of Health, the bill excludes seasonal vaccines such as the flu shot. The Centers for Disease Control reports that on-time vaccination throughout childhood is essential because it helps provide immunity before children are exposed to potentially life-threatening diseases. Vaccines are tested through this process to ensure that they are safe and effective for children to receive at the recommended ages. School immunization requirements are an important tool for achieving and maintaining high vaccination coverage rates, which are needed to achieve herd immunity. We need this bill.
Okay, Delegate, we are just dealing with the fiscal impact here. And as I see, the House has put money in for it. We actually put in more than the fiscal impact. It's in our budget for even more. So I think it's been moved and seconded the bill be reported. All in favor, please record your vote aye. Opposed, nay.
12 ayes, 2 nays, 1 abstention.
12 ayes, 2 nays, 1 abstention. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it very much.
Delegate Delaney. Delegate, I don't see her. Delegate Guzman.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I bring House Bill 586 that comes from Education and Health with unanimous support. This bill is about tasking the Commissioner of Health to convene a work group to study occurrence of PFAS on drinking water, because there is recommendations that water right now contain carcinogen. So I hope it is the pleasure of this body to support this bill. When I come from Appropriations, the recommendation from Appropriations was that the Department of Health would absorb this cost. But that's what I got.
Okay, I believe we need an amendment to lower the number of samples.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct. So the impact statement mentioned possible costs associated with testing waterworks. So the committee was going to recommend an amendment on line 26 after the word water to specify that in making its determination of levels of these types of substances in the water, the Department of Health shall sample no more than 50 representative waterworks and major sources of water to limit the pool of waterworks that are tested and then reduce the financial impact.
I'm okay with that, Madam Chair.
Okay, yes, Senator Norman.
I apologize for my inattentiveness. With that amendment, what is the projected fiscal impact?
Mike can confirm this, Madam Chair, Senator Norman, but I believe that diminishes the impact to a point where the agency can absorb it. And we heard, I believe it decreases the impact to the point where the agency could absorb it. And we heard earlier that the Department of Health has money to absorb a number of costs as well.
Madam Chair, can you give me a ballpark on what we're talking about?
Mike?
Madam Chair, Senator Norman, so the issue with the bill as it was drafted was the idea they thought they'd have to test a wide number. So the idea of restricting it to 50 would be small enough that they said if it was a very small representative sample, that it would be minimal enough to absorb. Although, of course, prior to their earlier statement, we don't know what that level is anymore.
Senator Norman.
I'm not being semantical with you, but my definition of minimal and what the Department of Health's definition of minimal is, they just absorb $205,000. And what I'm trying to determine is the definition of minimal 30,000 or is it 200,000?
My guesstimate is this would be like less than 25,000.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there further questions? Did we adopt the amendment? No, okay. We have an amendment then in front of us. Is there a motion on the amendment?
Move the amendment.
It's been moved and seconded that the amendment be agreed to. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Is there a motion on the bill? Second. It's been moved and seconded the bill as amended be reported. All in favor, record your vote aye. Opposed, no.
14 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention.
14 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Keem.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. I have two bills in front of you. One is, I'll just go into chronological order. House Bill 1336. This came out of the Education Committee, and I'd be happy to explain if you're ready.
I've got an update that there's no fiscal impact. Is that correct? No, it's not. Oh, okay. We have a.
Madam Chair and Delegate Keem, the suggested committee amendment would be on line 32 after the word years to insert a line saying shall evaluate whether such curricula reflect contemporary community standards and shall revise such curricula if necessary, and that applies to local school divisions. And then on line 38 to strike lines 38 through 43, which is the language currently in the bill directing the Board of Education to review its curriculum guidelines. So removing that state component would remove the state cost.
Madam Chair, I would say that the council's suggestions are fine with me, and the only reason why we wanted to do this bill is because right now there's some ambiguity as to whether FLEs are part of the overall SOQ, SOL reforms, which happens every 7 years. So we just wanted to clarify that it is, and as to who does it and how it's done, that's not as important as the fact that it's done at least once every 7 years. So if that resolves the fiscal impact, I'd be happy to accept that.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the amendment? It's been moved. Is there a second? And seconded, the amendment be adopted. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, is there a motion on the bill? It's been moved that the bill be reported as amended. All in favor, record your vote. Aye. Opposed, nay.
14 ayes, 1 nay.
14 ayes, 1 nay. The bill is
Thank you, Madam
reported.
Chair.
And
The other bill I have in front of you is House Bill 1690.
oh, your other one is already passed. It
Okay,
was in a block.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Do we have further bills on the docket? I don't see any delegates. I think we're done. I know, we are, yeah, sorry to tell you, but we are going to have to meet tomorrow. There's still bills coming. Sorry. It's afternoon. We've completed the docket, so the committee will rise.